This is called porn gone wrong. I had always wanted to fuck a girl. Really, it was something that was very high on my to-do list. Girls were pretty and they smelled good and were so nicely packaged. But one thing or another kept coming up, mainly cock, and I just never got around to it. One of these days, I would tell myself, I will get all up into a girl's pink parts. One of these days. When that day finally came around, it happened a little differently than I've been fantasizing about all those years. I ended up losing my early virginity on the set of my first porn flick. Let there be no mistake, a porn set is not the most romantic of settings under the best of circumstances. And this was not the best of circumstances. My cherry was popped by Lisa, a girl who had fucked Ron Jeremy, willingly. As in, she didn't get paid for it. She had met him at the AVN Awards in Las Vegas and was so impressed by his legendary body of work that she dragged him up to her hotel room and showed him what a big fan she was. I can only hope she used a condom. Lisa showed up the day of the shoot, pale and puffy-eyed, with 103 fever and a wet, hacking cough. Needless to say, all kissing was immediately written out of the script. It was obvious that she was suffering badly, but she refused all offers of medicine. She was of the spacey hippie persuasion, and the only medication she would accept was honey to coat her sore throat. She spent the entire shoot sucking dolefully on little plastic packets of honey left over from the order of KFC that had been delivered for lunch. It was her stated plan to smoke some pot the second filming was wrapped. I have never heard of marijuana and KFC honey as being particularly effective for soothing sore throats, but to each their own. Things went from bad to worse by the time the costume department had gotten done outfitting Lisa. They had decided to put her in a head-to-toe, skin-tight, black rubber catsuit, complete with hood. She looked like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction with tits. The plot called for her to fuck me with a strap-on a large bondage bed covered with rubber sheets. I was restrained doggy style with my ass arched high in the air. Lisa approached me, wiggling her massive strap-on threateningly, and then went to work. She fucked pretty good, I had to give her that. She really put her back into it. If I had known it was this much fun to be fucked by a girl, I would have done it much sooner. I moaned and gasped, locked deep in that zone of sex where your brain shuts off completely, when Lisa started to slow down the pace of her thrusts, and then stopped completely. I glanced over my shoulder to see what was the matter, and saw her swaying dizzily as she slowly keeled over onto her side. Evidently sticking someone in a full-body rubber suit and having them engage in strenuous physical activity while they were battling 103 fever can have side effects, like fainting and sweating. Lisa was sweating so much it was running out of the legs of her catsuit and pooling into her high heels. There was a ring of sweat huddled around our bodies, and we were slipping and sliding on the rubber sheets. A break was needed while she was peeled out of her sticky suit and rehydrated. Once she was up and functioning again, we moved on to the oral scene. I can't say I was wildly enthusiastic about Lisa sticking her germ-covered tongue into my nether regions, but the director kept shouting about how hot it would be, overruling my feeble objections. I looked over at Lisa, who looked hot, all right. I would even go so far as to say feverish. I was doomed. My immune system would never be able to combat whatever dirty, hippie, porn scarlet bugs Lisa had brewing in her system. I lay back on the sweaty rubber sheets and accepted the inevitable. What surprised me the most was how unremarkable it was. With my eyes closed, it could just as well have been a man down there. I had thought a girl, and particularly a girl that ate pussy for a living, would be amazingly good at it, sending me into untold heights of girly lesbian pussy bliss, but that wasn't the case. All I could think about were her germs coursing through the mucous membranes of my vaginal wall and wreaking havoc on my unsuspecting and recently de-virginized body. Finally, in desperation, I resorted to faking an orgasm. The grand finale of the shoot was for me to flip the tables on Lisa and shove a large butt plug up her ass. I had never shoved anything up anybody's ass, and was staggered at the size of the plug I was given to use. It was so big, my butt muscles clenched involuntarily at the mere sight of it. I had no idea how I was going to get that massive thing up her ass. Lisa was bent over and restrained into place, and I approached her little puckered O-ring, desperately trying to get the impression I knew what I was doing. God knows I tried, but it didn't matter how much I maneuvered that plug or how much lube I slathered on, it just wouldn't go in. Lisa was flinching and gritting her teeth, and I began to worry I was going to split her anus in two. I kept expecting blood to burst forth from her abused O-ring and coat the plug. Seeing my difficulties, the director started whispering helpful hints from behind the camera. Put your finger in first. Wiggle it around to get her loosened up. Stir her asshole like cake batter. That would help her I had never stuck my finger up a girl's ass either. That was another first for me. I gamely went for it, sliding my finger up into the hilt. It was at this point I started to notice things were a little ripe. The fragrant odor of unwashed butt was everywhere, clinging to my fingers and filling up my nose. I did my best to ignore it and soldier on. I had a job to do. The director was right. Loosening her up with my finger helped, and I finally managed to slide the plug-in past her resistant muscle. With that, the shoot was over. I stood up and backed off camera, making sure not to touch anything with my fingers, which stunk to high heaven. While I leaned up against a nearby wall, my stink fingers splayed wide, one of the PAs untied Lisa. She got the last of her bonds off and then approached me. Hey, I need to ask you a question. Yes, I replied. Well, I've been really constipated lately, and I haven't had a shit in 2 days, so I was wondering if you ran into anything when you were fingering my ass? Well, that explained a lot. Nope, I said with what I hoped was a convincing grin, and ran off to find a bathroom to scrub myself vigorously in. Who comes to a porn shoot without cleaning their nether regions? Hadn't this girl ever heard of enemas? What a disaster. I spent the next few days smelling the faint odor of shit on everything, and being sick, as Lisa had managed to pass on her flu bug, despite the lack of kissing. What a generous girl. Woo!